Good evening. It is August 2nd, and it's the first time I've seen this turbine move in a couple weeks. That one's actually making power. That one's maybe making something, but it's nice to see it spinning. So yeah, turbines, low wind zones, if you don't live on a mountain or in the plains with no trees, or on a hillside, and you buy a turbine. Turbine is rated for 500 watts or 1,000 watts or 250 watts. These things are designed, built, and sold, and especially the ratings, all of them. When you look at the cut-in wind speed and maximum wind speed, and they're talking about absolute optimal scenario, like perfect situation, perfect spot, location. They're talking about wind zones 3 or higher. Most of the connected 48 states, the United States of America, are wind zone 2. There's a very small little section down kind of the center of the country that's wind zone 3, and then in the mountain zones and stuff, there's rare spots where there's nice steady wind all year long, nice straight line wind, and that's what you need to make power, is straight line wind. And I tell you what, these turbines do awesome in the wintertime when all these leaves turn brown and fall and the wind can blow through the woods again. There's not that, that's all evergreen, so that's there year round, but the big one does great, absolutely awesome in the wintertime. This one holds its own. It's not in a real good spot. This is the first pole I built, and I was trying to more have it be real discreet. It's painted camouflage. The whole pole is painted, camo brown, and if you go back to the street line, it doesn't even look like it's there. But this tree massively blocks a lot of the air. You ever looked at a river with a rock sticking out? You see how it swirls around and eddies behind the rock. It makes those little siphons. That's called an eddy. Air does the exact same thing. So air hits this and spins around, builds up pressure, and then as it collides with the pressure coming from the other side of the tree, it twirls, and the air that actually hits that turbine that's coming from that direction is just turbulent fluff. It's not enough to spin the blade. See that one's still going? That one's just sitting there, and it's hanging in the same wind. It is 10 feet lower than the other one. This one's only 25 feet, which really is just not even a useful height. You can buy these 20-foot poles and 30-foot poles. That one's 35, and honestly, I wish it was another 15 feet in the air. If I could get above those treetops and this guy, that would probably never stop spinning. There's 50 feet is kind of the magic point for wind turbines. But long story short, if you're thinking about wind, or you bought a wind turbine and you're frustrated with it, it's probably not the turbine. It's probably a matter of the installation, The pole height, location has just an immense amount to do with your turbine's performance. Blades, the tail fin, almost none of them are designed for turbulent wind. Both of these I modified the tails for. I put them further back and tripled the surface area of the tail that came out of the box. This one I've tried half a dozen different blade sets on it. This one seems to do the best kind of overall. It doesn't make as high up peaks as the bigger 3 blades did, but when it's in the wind, it gets spinning at lower wind speeds, and I don't get a lot of real strong wind basically year round. I only see maybe 2 storms all year that exceed 30-40 mile an hour wind. That's pretty darn rare here. So yeah, last spring, spring of 19, this pole went up in the air, and I sat at this table having beverages, having breakfast, basically the whole summer watching this thing, getting madder and madder and madder, thinking, why in the hell is it not making any power? And, well, duh. No kidding, it's not making any power. It's not the turbine, it's me. I put it in a really bad location. This one is going to move. It's going to end up on a taller tower, and I'm going to put another tower right alongside of that one because that's in a way better spot. And I think they're both going to go up to 50 feet, even though I'm not sure what the local inspector will think about it, but fortunately with everything going on, I think they've got bigger fish to fry right now, so hopefully my turbine is pretty low on the radar. I know I don't have any complaints from the neighbors. I get along real good with all of my neighbors, take pretty good care of the property and so on and so on. So that's another thing to think of is, your local laws. How high are you allowed to have your turbine? The biggest thing they're worried about is the fall radius. So that's 25 feet tall. Something happens to it, it comes down, it can do damage within 25 feet. If that comes down and you got your car parked over there, yep, that's going to put one heck of a dent in it. If that one goes down, it's going to fold over my Jeep and my Chevy over there, and that's going to put one hell of a dent in it, but I'm nowhere near the road. So somebody would have to be straight up trespassing to be in danger, to be in the fall zone for my towers. So I think that's more their problem than mine. I'm just going to do it, and we'll see if they come say anything about it. And if they come say anything about it, maybe I need to live somewhere else. But yeah, getting back to the point, this doesn't make power in the summer because of me, because I put it in a really bad spot and I didn't get it high enough in the air. I used good heavy gauge wire, did everything right, and like I said, I already experimented with tails and different blades, and that only has a pretty minor effect. Obviously the longer the blades the better. More swept area equals more torque equals more watts, and the tail is going to keep it more stable. So if you can make more watts more consistently, then you're going to add up kilowatt hours and amp hours, and that's what charges your batteries, not freaky peaks. This one in a good windstorm last winter, it's a 500 watt rated turbine. It went up over 700. That is an 800 watt rated turbine. I saw that one jump up to 985, and yep, I was dancing around in the basement. It was a glorious evening, dancing and singing, watching these two just screaming, making tons of power, where to the point where actually my dump load controller was kicking on and it started warming water because my batteries were full. It was the middle of the night and the turbines were just wailing out here. But come summer, leaves came in right around June. This thing just kind of points that way and then points that way, and very rarely do the blades even begin to spin. You know, maybe when it straightens out and twirls up in these little gusts right now, it might be jumping up to 20-30 watts, but it's not accumulating anything. It might be pushing a little bit of current down the line, but it's not accumulating anything. That one's probably making 100 watts or better. It was a cloudy 2 days, so yeah, I actually got my backup generator running over there. If you haven't seen it, check out the video on that I made. That's a monster of a generator. You can't buy that in stores though. You got to build it, or you got to commission somebody like me to build it for you if you don't have much for fabrication skills. But yeah, check that video out. If you're living off grid, you got to have a backup generator. And I tell you what, buying some off-the-shelf AC generator and running that to a battery charger is a huge waste of money. It's extremely inefficient, and you're just burning out stuff for no reason. That's just a gas motor, a belt, and a large permanent magnet alternator, and that shoves tons of power. That'll shove 3,000 watts into my battery bank if I dial it up high enough. Right now it's idled down pretty low, but it's still pushing 1,050 watts into the batteries. But anyhow, yeah, low wind zones, wind turbines are frustrating. It is a completely different science, but think it out. Do some planning. If you buy a wind turbine, don't be in too much of a rush to get it up. Put your pole together, get your parts together. Make sure your pole is going to be tall enough. Get heavy enough pipe. Don't cheap out on the pipe. Don't cheap out on the cable. Don't cheap out on the anchors. Don't cheap out on the wire. That is the second most important part of your system is the wire. The wire that carries the current from there all the way to there. That's 125 foot under the ground and all the way up to the top of that tower. You experience quite a bit of voltage drop. So, because these are low voltage systems, there's actually a 48 volt stator in there. I've got a 24 volt system. I got the higher voltage one, so I would experience less drop. I don't get the current that I get from the big one out of that, but in the winter time it does make good consistent power pretty much all winter long. It's great. But I went heavy on the wire. I ran 8 gauge all the way up there, and yep, that was about a $250 piece of wire. I paid $280 for the turbine. I got probably 120, 150 into the pipe, cables, clamps, rings at the top, and and then my time doing the fab. I welded the rings on and made my earth anchors and poured concrete and devised a pretty smart ratcheting system. And it's double cables. There's cables at the top and another set of cables halfway to keep the pole from bending. That's another thing. If you've only got one set of cables, you'll notice real quick that when the wind blows, your pole will start bending at the middle, and that's robbing energy from the turbine. So there's just a lot of things to consider, and don't be in too much of a rush and then go back on Amazon or whatever the hell site you bought it on and post a nasty review about something you don't really understand, because Wind is a completely different animal. It's very inconsistent at low elevations. If you can get up 50 feet in the air, you can bet that thing's going to make power. If you got it wired up right with some decent wire and you got it on a sturdy pole, it's level so it can rotate without any resistance. They are balanced. They're supposed to be level. You know, it'll make power. It'll do what it's supposed to do, even with just probably the blades and the tail that come out of the box. You know, that's where they're supposed to be, is 50 feet in the air or higher, in optimal wind conditions. Where this guy is sitting is one of the worst places I could have it on the whole yard, and it's about 20 feet too low. So, yep, that's why it doesn't make power, at least in the summer. So, before the snow flies, this will be coming down, and I'll be building another tower identical to that one, and it'll share 2 of the earth anchors and then spread a third one out, so it'll be evenly spaced, sharing those anchors, just pulling the other way. I'll maybe add a little bit more weight to them, dig the hole out and pour some more cement in there. But that one's going at least another 5 feet. I might take out the 5-foot section and put in a 10-foot section and have them both at 40 feet. And then they'll rock and roll, you know, 40 to 50 feet. If you can get to there, she's gonna do something. But yeah, let's take a walk over here, and just in case you haven't seen any of my other videos, I'll give you a closer look at this one. This one does do great, pretty much year round. If the air is moving, it's catching it and it's making something. But this one, I had to do major modifications to the tail. You can see that it's an X tail, and that's 2.5 feet tall and 18 inches wide if you measured it from the back, all the furthest points. I made that a 16 gauge sheet steel, cut it all apart, cleaned it up, fabbed it, painted it, and slapped a nice American flag sticker on there. And then I got the longest blades that would fit on this turbine, fit on the shaft anyhow. They're 950 millimeter blades. It's a 5-blade set. That one's got 750, and that's a 6-blade set. But this one, you know, it could be taller, but it is up high enough where it catches productive wind and makes productive power, and it helps keep my batteries charged on gray, gloomy days. So, anyhow, a lot to think about with wind. Don't give up. You got the world's knowledge at your fingertips. Don't just give up and blame the manufacturer. Say, oh, this thing's a piece of shit, never made more than 20 watts. Well, I tell you what, that one never made more than 20 watts until I started, you know, watching it and figuring out why it wasn't making any power. It couldn't catch the wind. It was as simple as putting the bigger tail on it, not even having to mess with the blades, and all of a sudden it could point into the wind and spin up and make power. And then when I learned how to balance blades, once you know it, it makes real consistent power in the wind. And instead of it being robbed, you know, of energy, bouncing around and you know, losing all that energy and vibration with unbalanced blades, now it turns nice and smooth. You grab onto the pole, it doesn't vibrate, doesn't make any noise, and it's able to, you know, spin up and make overrated power. I've seen it go over 500 a bunch of times. But yeah, isn't that crazy? Turbulence just makes them flop all over the place. But that's what happens in the summer. But I'm done freaking out about it. I know what it is going to do in the winter. and I know what it's going to do up there when I got it in a decent spot. But you know, it's going to cost me more money and more time, but it'll be worth it because it'll help maintain my batteries. These things, if you can get them to work, they do wonders on your battery, because the power that comes out of them is a pulsating, because of the three-phase that then gets rectified into DC. Even that DC feed is a pulse. It's a pulse at the speed of the rotation of the turbine, and that pulsating power really helps keep the plates clean. And lead acid batteries, SLAs, AGMs, any of that, it's all very similar technology, and it likes a certain type of electrical current. They all really like turbines. So stick with it. Don't give up. If you have any questions, I've done tons of modifications to a bunch of different turbines now. I'd be happy to help. So, thanks for watching. Be safe out there. Quit fighting with your neighbors, snitching on your neighbors about mass and dumb shit. Mind your own business. Just love each other, for goodness sakes. Let's start smiling at people again instead of judging everyone. Worry about yourself, the family. God bless you. Have a good night.